So Christmas in New York is obviously a big thing. This is typically the busiest time of year in Midtown Manhattan when it comes to foot traffic. So jumping right into it, day one, we kicked off the day, started off pretty early at like 10:30 in the morning around 14th Street. Wanted to check out the holiday market that they have at Union Square. While I was walking to Union Square, there were two women talking to each other. I think they had just met. One of the ladies was feeding pigeons and then the other lady was joining her and they were both feeding pigeons. Took some photos of that. This is 10:30 in the morning. I had just put a fresh roll of Portrait 800 in. I walked to Union Square, walked into the holiday market, and it was pretty damn busy. Way busier than I thought it was gonna be at 10:30 in the morning. So I think that kind of set the tone of what this day was gonna be at 10:30 in the morning if Union Square was already that busy. I didn't stick around there for too long. I took some photos just to try to get in the groove. There was like a family sitting down on the steps by the subway entrance. There was a lady with 3 dogs. They all had like turkey costumes on, like 2 or 3 frames of her and her dogs. Then I finally left Union Square. My mindset when I saw Union Square pretty busy was, if this is this busy, then Midtown has got to be crazy. Headed up Broadway. My path uptown was from Union Square up Broadway, right around the Flatiron building. I took some photos along the way. Nothing too crazy going on there, but still some pretty good foot traffic. And I just kept walking up Broadway. I just kept walking up Broadway because that led me to Herald Square, where that was the first big holiday checkpoint. From Union Square is at Macy's. They're decked out, you know, kind of bumped around there for a little bit. Then head up 6th Avenue towards Bryant Park, where there is another Winter Village. I ended up at like 42nd Street and 6th Avenue. And in the holiday season, this corner gets slammed because people are coming from Times Square, people are coming from Rockefeller Center, and they're converging on this corner with all of this light, trying to get to the holiday market, and it's just chaos. People are just running into each other, trying to get through each other. If there's only a few intersections in the city with a lot of light and a lot of people, there's gonna be a lot of photographers. This day was a great example of that. There was a ton of people that I had just met, some people that I've never seen before, some people that I've known for a long time. I ended up running into Dustin, and I just shot on that corner, 42nd and 6th, for probably like an hour, just going through maybe 1 or 2 rolls on that corner. Ended up seeing some other friends. I saw Rob and I saw Will. Ended up having to take a break because, you know, it gets exhausting. There's just too many people out there. You're constantly scanning left and right and up and down and what are people doing, and, you know, looking at little micro moments while also looking at macro moments. So after, you know, an hour of just like a constant wave of people, it gets exhausting. So me and Dustin escaped to a coffee shop, got some coffee, recharged, re-energized, and then we got back out there. Had no real plan. We walked up 6th Avenue. 6th Avenue has a bunch of holiday decorations up, so both 6th Avenue and 5th Avenue were completely slammed with foot traffic. So me and Dustin, we just walked straight up 6th Avenue where we ran into Kazu. Kazu was also out shooting, of course, because Kazu's always out shooting. Then I just shot around Rockefeller Center for a little bit on 6th Avenue, right in front of Radio City. Moments were kind of hard to get to because there were so many people. Even if I saw something happening, I would have to kind of go through 2 to 5 people to get there, which happened a couple of times, but you kind of have to check yourself to not get too frustrated when you can't get to a shot, or if somebody walks in front of you when you see a shot. It's kind of just the nature of the beast when shooting in these kind of conditions where this is super crowded, super packed. You kind of just have to let it go and, you know, move on. Short memory. I mean, after 6th Avenue, the next logical step was to go to 5th Avenue. 5th Avenue has all the shops, so that naturally during the holiday season is gonna be one of the craziest avenues and areas to take photos. Ran into Sean over by the St. Patrick's Cathedral up on 5th Avenue, and then also ran into Oscar Diaz. You guys might know Oscar Diaz from Instagram. He was out there shooting along 5th Avenue as well. So, you know, a lot of people out. Obviously, it's one of the busier weekends, so it makes sense to see a lot of photographers out trying to capture all of the energy before everything kind of just goes flat in January. The light from the sun this time of year is fleeting. It only lasts up and down the avenues for about like an hour and a half. So around like 2:30, the light is already gone from 5th Avenue. So right around that time, we decided to take a breather and get some pizza, re-energize, get some sustenance in our bodies, and then head back out. So then I ended up walking with John Wah and Sean for a little bit. We walked back up 6th Avenue. It was quite dark outside, so I had put the flash on, and the crowds kept getting busier and kept getting busier. I feel like the darker it got, the crowds kept like multiplying over and over and over again. Sean had dipped like around 5 o'clock, I believe, and then me and John Wah went to Times Square to shoot for a little bit. On Times Square, the Gorillas were filming some kind of music video, some kind of augmented reality music video on the billboards. So there was a big crowd of Gorillas fans in the middle of Times Square, right in front of the red steps. They all had their cell phones out and they were all kind of bunched together looking up. So I took a bunch of photos trying to pack a bunch of people into a frame with cell phones looking up. Other than that, I don't think I got that much from Times Square. Yeah, that was Times Square, man. What else happened? John Wah had left like around, I want to say like 6:37, which kind of left me to my own devices. So then I was solo for the rest of the night. I had popped back over to 6th Avenue to one of the main intersections of all the craziness. It was right in front of Radio City, probably like 49th Street, 50th Street, literally at the entrance of Radio City Music Hall. It was so busy. Even after John left, around 6, it kept getting busier, kept getting busier, and kept getting busier. Like, I walked in the street while everybody else was kind of barricaded on the sidewalk. I was not trying to get stuck in that mess, so I took some photos of people hopping the barricades along 6th Avenue. I feel like every time I kind of stopped, I felt like I was drowning and I was just trying to come up for air. It was just an onslaught of people coming at you. The waves weren't getting smaller, the waves kept getting bigger, and I was just sitting there in the midst of these waves, just still trying to find something, but you know, I kept at it. I probably stayed out until about 9 o'clock at night that day, kind of hung around the tree, bumping between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. 5th Avenue is crazy because the Saks 5th Avenue store puts up this giant light show, so everybody kind of gathers around between the tree and Saks and just stops and watches it. So that's like a big bottleneck of people. Not in a good way. My last stop before leaving, I passed back through Times Square. It sounds weird, but I passed back through Times Square to get a break from all of the crowds around the tree in 5th and 6th Avenue. Because although Times Square was busy, it wasn't as insane as like the holiday stuff on 5th and 6th Avenue. Ended up running into Dave from Philly. He was in town for the day. And I think after that, I walked back down to Herald Square and then I dipped. I was completely exhausted. I think I had finished 5 rolls of film that day. And at that point, I wanted to just go home, maybe grab a beer and then go to sleep. Yo, shout out to Gelatin Labs for processing and scanning all of the photos that you see in this video. If you're looking for a film lab, try them out. Link is in the description. Send them your film, or if you're in the New York City area, you can just drop your film off at one of their drop boxes. They got 2 in the city, and they also have a couple in the immediate surrounding area of the city. So check them out, Gelatin Labs, show them some love, and let's get back to the video. So now getting into Sunday, which is day 2 of this weekend. It was World Cup Championship final day. So I ended up watching the first half of the World Cup at home, and then once halftime hit, I went into the city. When I got into the city, there was already a World Cup watch party downtown. They had a big screen set up. I kind of walked around there for like maybe 15 minutes, took a couple photos, but I wanted to get to this Argentinian restaurant that I had Googled the night before the game ended. By the time I had left the watch party downtown, Argentina was up 2-0, and you guys already know the story, but I thought they had it in the bag, so I was like, okay, cool. By the time I get there to this Argentinian restaurant, it's gonna be crazy. They're probably all celebrating already because they're up 2-0 in like the 80th minute. But on the way there, I was hearing these cheers from like the apartments, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And you guys know the story, and I was like, shit. I got there to this Argentinian place, and they were charging $100 a person minimum to watch the game there. So that deterred not only me from going inside, but it seems like a lot of other people, because there was nobody else really around. I mean, it wasn't empty inside, but it wasn't packed. That was a real dud. I was really banking on that to have some energy for me to take photos of. Had to call an audible real quick. I spent a good amount of time, it felt like, just wandering around looking for a place with a lot of energy. I walked by several bars. I was zigzagging around the East Village for a while, and missing this great game. I was kind of getting frustrated. So in my mind, I knew that I think during the UEFA Championship, there was a soccer bar that had a big celebration after the game on like 35th Street, and I knew that there would be people watching the game there. And even if there isn't like a big celebration for either Argentina or France at that point, I'm in Midtown where I can just pivot to take holiday photos like I did the day before. Ended up going to Herald Square, caught the very end of the game, right before they went into PKs, and then I watched all the PKs. Then, obviously you guys know that Argentina won. There wasn't a big celebration outside, unfortunately, but ended up running into Alex Brown. He walked up with me to 42nd and 6th. Which was still pretty crazy. Like it was on Saturday, it was still pretty nuts from all the holiday traffic. At this point, I had given up on finding like a celebration. But then this car drove by, and this lady had the Argentina flag, and she was, sticking out the sunroof, and they were celebrating. So I was like, man, I know there's got to be a celebration somewhere around here. My last ditched effort was Times Square, and I checked the Times Square live cam, and I could see in the middle of Times Square, there was a bunch of Argentina flags. So I said, okay, F it. This is where I'm gonna go right now. The holiday stuff is cool, and I had a good time the day before shooting all the holiday stuff, but I feel like this is something that I'd rather take photos of right now. So I went to Times Square. There was a big celebration of Argentina fans. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. I just kind of walked around that area, walked around that celebration for a couple of hours, and shot through a couple of rolls. I ended up taking a break from all of that to go to Fifth Avenue. This year on Sundays, they closed Fifth Avenue between certain times to traffic, so it's all foot traffic, no cars. And this was going to be the last Sunday that they did that before Christmas, so I wanted to check that out. I got there, of course, the light was already gone. There was still a good amount of people. Took some photos, but then in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about the World Cup celebration in Times Square. So, and then I ended up going back to Times Square to shoot the Argentina celebration for the World Cup for like another hour. Honestly, stayed there for the rest of the day. I got real tired. I think I was pretty exhausted from like the day before, and just went home. But I was feeling pretty good about what I had taken for those 2 days. Ended up calling pretty early, ended up leaving the city like around 4 or 5 p.m. Really just decided to go home and spend a couple hours with the kid before she went to bed. So yeah, that's the story of the last weekend before Christmas. Again, probably the busiest I've seen New York since 2019. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed the photos that I've shown. I feel like these kind of videos are just a good way for me to share photos. Even though I don't have the POV, the GoPro setup on, I still want to be able to share photos with you guys. So figure this is a good way to do that and have a one-way conversation with you. You can converse back by leaving a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and you might as well smash that like button. Yeah, okay. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
Now when they see us in the streets, all they wanna do is take